You are listening to Nerd Best Friends, a podcast that covers the nerdy conversations you're already having, or wish you could. It's the nerdiest thing you'll do this week.
This is Analese.
And this is Rob.
And we are your nerd best friends.
In this episode, we are Ghostbusting over the franchise.
So strap your proton pack up and let's get slimed.
This is your Nerd Best Friends official call to action. Grab your devices, hit that subscription button, give us a rating, and share this episode with your fellow geeks. Let's grow the nerd community together. Every click helps us reach more of you out there. So, what are you waiting for? Join the movement.
This is episode 64. Bustin makes me feel good, Rob. What about you?
I am glad to be feeling good. In fact, I mentioned it in our last subscriber exclusive episode that I had not been feeling well. I got the flu for a little bit, but now back ready to rock and roll with one of my favorite franchises of all times, the Ghostbusters. What have you been up to?
Pretty much the same. You know, winter break was a thing. We came back, did our 25 for 2025, diving into our nerd goals, and here we are already towards the end of January. I am so excited to talk about Ghostbusters today. I really am. Before we get to that, Rob, let's get to some nerd mail.
Nerd mail. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to share this with you. Annalise, someone sent me a message. This was actually, they had sent it a little while ago during the end of 2024. You know, Spotify gives you your end of year, they call it like the wrap, right? The
your Spotify Wrapped, for
your year. I got a Spotify Wrap screenshot from listener Bryn, and I will show this to you right now. Ooh. It is the Spotify Wrap with our logo on it. Get this. You're a top 0.05% of listeners on Nerd Best Friends and spent 3,989 minutes together. You're an overachiever.
Listener Bryn, that is amazing. First of all, I had no idea we had that many minutes of content in 2024, but I am so honored and touched and so glad that you're getting nerdy with us, Bryn.
So listener Bryn said that she discovered the podcast this year and went back to get 100% caught up on episodes. And she said standout episodes were the Stephen King episode.
Hey.
And the Quantum Leap episode.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Actually, our Nerd Best Friends Spotify Wrapped said the Stephen King episode was our most popular episode of 2024. So
no kidding. Well, how about that?
It's amazing. Well, thank you, Brent. Thank you for sharing that nerd mail, Rob. That's like such an amazing thing to hear to start off 2025.
3,989 minutes of content. I don't know if that counts. I don't know if that's bonus episodes or not.
If she went back and listened to everything, it's got to be everything. I was going to say,
right.
3,000 minutes for the year sounds like more than what we publish, but I'm for it. Listener Bryn, you're awesome. You could also start adding some Patreon bonus episodes to that.
Patreon.com/nerdbestfriends.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. Great best nerd mail to start out 2025. I love it. Let's go on to our segment, Talk Nerdy to Me. Today's Talk Nerdy to Me, we have Robert C. Murray, the author of the Titan Run trilogy books. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thanks, Annalise. It's great to be here.
We have a few questions for you. We're just going to start by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your nerd cred, and what brings you to the show.
So my nerd cred, I grew up watching OG Star Trek on a black and white TV in my parents' bedroom while playing with Legos. You know, I had some Star Wars toys. I had the Darth Vader action figure case growing up.
The one that held action figures, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's like a clamshell that looked like a Darth Vader bust. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I would watch anything sci-fi related, including the guy that played John Boy was in a Star Wars ripoff / Seven Samurai ripoff called Battle Beyond the Stars. back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Wow.
And I would watch that whenever it came on TV. I watched it recently on
Really?
It's on Prime, I think. For what it is, it holds up.
Freaking awesome. Welcome to the show, Rob. You're in
Thanks,
the right
guys.
place. We're all in the right
Rock
place.
I
That's
have
why
to-
that
I
question
have to-
comes first.
Exactly. I have to say, so I've done a little bit of snooping, Rob, in preparation for you being on the show. So I'm going to start with your handle. Your handle is Left Hand Rob. Is that because you're left-handed?
Very much so.
Because that makes 3 of 3 people in this conversation right now who are left-handed.
All
That
the
is
coolest, smartest, most
statistically
creative
improbable.
people are left-handed.
Yeah. Sorry, we were just watching football. I was before I came in. My wife and I are big NFL fans. And
too.
the Falcons have a left-handed rookie quarterback, Michael Penix Jr.
Yes.
Yep.
My wife and I, we kind of root for the Bucks together. I'm a
Okay.
Ravens fan. She's a Pats fan, just to lay everything out. But Bucks are kind of our team. There's a whole thing going on. Anyway, we weren't supposed to be rooting for the Falcons with Michael Penix. But the point is, he's a fellow lefty. So I was a little torn.
Yeah.
Because you want
Yeah.
the lefties to do well. I feel we have a natural kinship. There's not that many of us.
No, and especially in the NFL, left-handed quarterbacks are rare.
Very rare.
Okay, so more snooping.
Mhm.
You posted somewhere nerding out about a cornet. Tell us more
Yes.
about that.
So one of the other things I did growing up was I've been playing the trumpet since I was 8 years old, and I've had trumpets. I own probably 3 different trumpets in B flat. I have a plastic C trumpet, up here on my display shelf. But I never had a cornet. For those that don't know, the stubby trumpet.
Yes.
Yeah. And a friend of mine here in town, her and her husband opened up an antique shop recently. And my wife and I were in during the holidays to visit and say hi. It was down there and the valves worked and it looked in good shape and it came with the case. So I said, I'm buying it.
Heck yes.
And it's a gorgeous mid-century late 40s, early 50s horn that still is about 95% functional.
Oh, wow.
Like I wouldn't want to take it into a concert setting without a little TLC, but it works. So much fun. It's so cool, I think.
And so
Annalise,
I'm
what the
blowing
hell is happening right now?
I am blowing best friend Rob's mind right now.
My
because
name is also Rob. I'm also left-handed. I also played the trumpet since I
All
was
3 of
8
us are
years
trumpet
old.
players.
Do you have a fourth? Do you have another question, Annalise, to ask this man?
4 for 4.
How much do you love Star Trek?
With all my heart.
Okay, cool.
So as I was doing more and more research, there's such a thing as doppelgangers, but not necessarily by visual cue.
Uh-huh.
I have like the same person in 2 different screens.
Am I being fired from the podcast right now? Is that why you found a better Rob?
No. It was blowing my mind and it took all my will. This is where my friendship with you, best friend Rob, sometimes gets a little wonky with our podcast for the last 4 seasons because I want to text you things, but I have to oh no, this is better content
Save
if
it
I
for the
blow
show.
his mind.
Oh,
But yeah, I
my
had to bring that up,
gosh.
guest Rob, because it just, as more and more similarities came around, it was just really fun. So we're super happy to have you here.
I love everything about it. This is perfect.
Wild.
Statistically
So-
improbable.
It's pretty crazy. Like when I saw the picture of the cornet, I went, "There's no way. There's no way he's a trumpet player. There's no way we're gonna bring this guest on who is possibly left-handed, loves Star Trek, and is a trumpet player. How is this even a thing?" Thanks, Threads.
Seriously, thanks, Threads.
Or maybe this is going to be our most popular episode ever because there are 1.5 billion Americans who are all named Rob, play the trumpet, love sci-fi things, and are left-handed.
It is also a possibility. So let's talk about your trilogy Titan run. So what inspired you to create this story in this trilogy?
So probably the original genesis of it was I've been writing stories here and there for pretty much my entire adult life. And I wanted to get back and write novel length because I'd written a novel. If you look deep enough, you can find it. It's in print at Amazon, but it's not science fiction. I'd written a bunch of sci-fi short stories, none of which are any good, none of which are in print anywhere anymore because they're not good. I wanted to write sci-fi novels. I wanted to tell that long form story. And this is the idea. The original tagline I had for it was the deadliest catch in space.
All right.
And that's what the Titan Run, the eponymous Titan Run, is about people who leave Mars. They take a mining ship basically, and they go out to Saturn, harvest methane slush from the surface, all the, different chemical slushes from the surface of Titan, haul it back to Mars where it gets burned industrially to terraform the atmosphere of Mars. And then there's a whole society that sprung out of that, and a whole universe. I have a whole universe of ideas that have come forth from that, of books that I will write. No one can stop me.
What a very unique and cool idea. How much like hard science is behind that? Or do you have a science background? Did you do a lot of research? Or is it all just made up?
I think about, you read a book sometimes and the science is so far off or so obviously off, where at least somebody that knows is going to look at that and say, this is BS. And It takes me out of the story. So I start from the point of, I want to try. So I did I dusted off the old algebra skills from high school and college to try and make the math, the travel times, like how long would it take for them to be accelerating to generate gravity? Because I didn't have artificial gravity to start with. So I wanted to do that. Brief digression. I had never heard of nor read any of the Expanse novels, which are before or seen the show at all, before I started working on this and built this. And the whole thing existed either in my head or on the page before. So there are a lot of similarities, is what I'm saying.
Sure.
World building wise, between myself and the guy's amazing set of books. Big fan of the show. So just to get that out of the way. But so I did the math, if you're under acceleration to have enough gravity to stand and walk around on your ship, what would that look like? So I did that math. It's probably wrong, but it was close enough. So I started from a place of, we solved for radiation, we've solved for a couple of other things. Let's go on the adventure at that point. So it starts from a place of no magic science stuff. Kind of, for purposes of good storytelling, some of that gets neatly set to the side a little bit. And in the new books that we'll hopefully talk about here shortly, that I will be releasing soon, some of that steps to the side, but very much from a place of trying to keep things as realistic as possible. One of the plot devices, one of the things in the story are algae reactors that are used to recycle the air, as well as provide potentially backup fuel and food stock for my crews. A friend of mine has his PhD in microbiology and marine biology and is an expert on algae. It's what he did his dissertation on. So I would go to him and say, hey, does this make sense? Would this, what strains of algae? Because I think I named them here and there as just details to fill in. Yeah. So I leaned on my contacts and I did some research. I was actually just doing research for the new books, looking at Neptune's moons and Lagrange points and stuff like that to make sure I chose the right one, and I found one that made sense for the story. So I was very happy.
That sounds very cool. And it sounds like your Star Trek background is also influenced. Like, you start with some real stuff and then you use some other made up words. But if you use them consistently enough, they just become truth for the universe. That's the Star Trek way.
Exactly.
You mentioned that it's an entire expansive universe. And from what I want to note to our listeners, that the first book is out. You have it out for free, for no charge. So I've started to read it, but I'm a slow reader. So unfortunately, I didn't finish it before today's interview. But yeah, there's competing ships and there's the interpersonal issues and relationships. And did you start this series having these relationships mapped out, or did it really start with the idea of the Titan run itself and then the characters came about? The
idea for what was going to happen always comes first for me. Typically it's what comes first, and then I kind of backfill it with the people, and then they come to life inside the universe. And the two main characters, the main interpersonal kind of conflict thing going on in that story, are loosely based on a couple that I have fallen out of touch with, but was friends with. In my mind, it's these two guys are the main couple. Both great guys. They're not starship commanders or scientists in this case. Different people entirely. But so sometimes I draw from, at least for just to think about a face in my head, it's someone that I know to start with.
And as you've gone across now this series of 3 books, do you have like family trees or maps of these peoples, and it's all in your that's impressive.
Yeah, all the people. I will say, so I lose track. Is it here? I think it's in this, because I've started work on this. I finished the first book in the next series, and that's being beta read right now, and I've started work on the next book. But I have this, which is all the characters that have significant things going on while I'm writing it, especially with a cast of characters like that. I will lose track, but the people of the original trilogy are burned into my brain now. Like, I think about them, and I can tell you stuff about them and their lives and all that. Yeah, that's all in my head.
That's amazing.
Something, and I tried to, so something in this trilogy that you'll see is, and I've had reviewers tell me this too, so many of the characters have bigger plot stories. It's a huge cast of characters that all have things going on. I didn't intend for that to happen, but it was one of those, if I'm including somebody, then I need to really dive in and give you background. Less so in the new series that I'm working on. Like the main characters are still there, but I don't give a lot of the side characters entire chapters just to themselves for their backstory. You don't meet everybody. My inspiration from that was there was a David Brin novel from the 90s called Earth, and he had this large cast and they all began in different places on Earth before circumstances kind of drew them together toward the end of the series. And that's where I came from with that.
Okay.
Yeah, but but for the new series, it's stick with my mains. My supporting characters are there, and you learn about them through what they do. But they're not getting whole chapters of stuff. They might get their own books in the future, but if I find them interesting and inspiration pops in, but I'm not going to digress as much. More focus on the main story.
Well, so you've mentioned the new series a few times, and definitely want to ask you about that. So the new series is related to this trilogy?
Yes, same universe.
Okay.
20 years later, some of the characters from the first trilogy appear in this one. I kind of promote literally within the story and figuratively to main character level. Some of the side characters from that first series are now main characters in this one. They have new support people around them. It's going to be, this first book is going to be 3 ebooks, 3 novella length ebooks.
Okay.
That I'll eventually put into print as a single paperback and hardcover. Think what Neil Stephenson did with the Baroque cycle, where he initially, because he's Neil Stephenson and will do this, released 3 thick volumes, which I love and will reread every couple of years. But he then released them as thinner paperbacks of the subsections from each one. I'm doing that, but with ebooks. So there'll be 9 ebooks in this, and it tells a story that takes place 20 years in the future. So some of that techno babble has advanced a little bit. Some things that were new before are standard now, and you get to see what's happened to a lot of the people.
And what's the timeline in real life between the third book and this new series? How much time in between when you wrote the third book of the original Titan Run series to having this one done?
The third book in the Titan Run trilogy came out in 2021, I think, 21 or 22. I think it was 21. And then, of course, this one, I've been working on it off and on really since then. I took some months off. I had the whole series mapped out, the original trilogy. Published it, the first book, in 2016, and life, as it does for someone who has a day job, got in the way, and then the pandemic happened, and suddenly the kids had nowhere to be. I had nowhere to go, every evening. So I suddenly had all this time. So that's where the last 2 books were able to get, and I was able to really build my muscles of writing every day. So for better or worse, I was able to get those knocked out, and then I took some time off. I was feeling a little burned out, and then I really hit the ground. I got all of this, the first book, done over 2024.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. So I finished typing it up just before the new year.
And are you intending this new series to also be a trilogy, or are you just taking it as it comes as the story evolves?
It's going to be ultimately those 3 bound books. So it'll be 3 thick book trilogy with 9 individual episodes, really, within. Very much rhymes with all of our favorite series out there. A certain Space Wizard series that has its 9 chapters of its main story. Yeah,
right. Yeah, it also reminds me how Stephen King did The Green Mile. He published them as small chapter books, and then the whole thing at some point.
Going back to the universe for our listeners to really give us, the sense of it and the advertisement, so we can gain that interest. We know it's science fiction. We know it happens in space, that it's Mars and it's different planets and it's going out on these things. Is it a utopian society, a dystopian society? Are the books action adventures? Are they noir mysteries? Like what can we look forward to in the Titan trilogy?
It's a world where Earth is now a garden. The history of the universe is that we take Earth to the brink. It's bad. I have a story in the past that I'm working on, an ancestor of one of the main characters of the trilogy who is instrumental in saving humanity ultimately. But in this book, we run past the 1.5 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree. Earth is not in great shape. By the 2300s, where the book takes place, Earth is now a garden. It's aided by technology and sadly a vast depopulation on Earth. But Mars is kind of the bustling city center of the solar system now, still under domes, but it's kind of a hybrid socialist capitalist situation. You never have to worry about where you're going to live. You never have to worry about food or medical care, all the stuff that could be solved, but currently isn't in a lot of places. So all of that, and the economics of my universe are an ongoing thing because I lean back on modern American capitalism as a crutch because that's what I know, but better solved for. Really, like there's still money, but you can live a life without needing money just to be. There's still rich people. One of my main characters comes from a very wealthy family on Mars, but she chooses to be a doctor in space instead. There's a lot of found family themes in the book. That mining ship I talk about especially. These are people from all different walks of life who come together, and you really feel that by the end of the journey, they are a family together. And the other ship where action takes place throughout the series is kind of, they become intertwined through events as well. So it's kind of this large extended family. And the new series will talk about that some as well. You'll see how those relations between the people hold over time. So I did have one reader tell me that it is a page turner.
Okay.
As you get into it. The first book is one of those where you're meeting everybody. It's setting the stage for the last two books. It's very much things happen, but you're learning who everyone is. You're getting the starting point of everything. And it's the shortest of the three by probably 100, 200 pages each. It's a much shorter journey in that first book to get things underway. And then the action kicks up in the second book. And, there are quiet moments. There's a lot of group dinners. A lot of people eating together and camaraderie built around that. So there's a lot of coziness to it, but it also swings toward, oh no, what's going to happen? I got to keep turning the page to find out what's coming next. So it's not all things to all people, obviously, but it has elements of both coziness and, oh no, this character I love, are they going to make it?
Excellent. On those themes, looking at that world, looking at that universe, obviously we're a nerd podcast, so we always are talking about board games or video games or cosplay or these kinds of things. When the Titan Run universe, this trilogy, next trilogy explodes and it's the most popular thing in the world and we start getting all of these franchises, what are you looking forward to the most? Is it a board game? Is it video games? Is it artwork? Is it a comic? What would be that vision you would have?
It's Lego kits of
yes.
Of the ships.
Oh, nice. Nice. Good answer.
And I have another visual for you both here in a moment, based on Lego kits based on the models that are made from the hit TV or film series. I'm just going to wrap it all up in there.
There you go.
Every author believes this, but I firmly believe that these stories especially would translate really well to the screen, whether it's animated, whether it's live action prestige drama somewhere. Bezos and Amazon are looking for the next big Expanse style hit.
Yep.
Look at my stuff, guys. I'm willing to sign a contract. I like money.
Perfect.
I mean, you're already
ready
talking
to
about
sell out. Let's go.
You're already talking about an original series, and you're 20 years later, and then you have I'm thinking Rogue One with what you were saying, the ancestral story of the it's there. You are totally right.
Ideas on top of ideas on top of ideas. I have probably 10 other ideas that I could spin into their own series of stories based on the starting point.
Listen, if we can across the nation meet two left-handed Robs who play the trumpet and love science fiction, I'm sure that there is an audience for this show that we're dreaming of. Absolutely. There needs to be more and better sci-fi on streaming services and television.
Always more and better sci-fi. So there are two hero ships in the original trilogy. There is the mining vessel Kraken, which for the folks listening, I'm showing a Lego model of the Kraken there. And I think there are photos of this on my Instagram profile, my Instagram page. Perfect. So you've seen this. So that's the Lego model. This stays on my desk at all times. And then the other hero ship is the Phoenix. And that's the kind of space military. Definitely not, he said, winking, based on Starfleet.
No, not at all. No similarity.
So this is the Phoenix, which in the series is a brand new ship. So these guys live on my desk.
And you built those. Did you have, you mentioned having kids. Did you have them help you build those? How did you come up with those models?
My kids love to build with Legos, but they love to get the kits out of the box and do the construction part of it. We have an amazing array in our basement of these vastly complex kits that the kids have built. The oldest had built a Millennium Falcon years ago, and it was on. We have this little niche in our house, and it was on display there for years. It was recently supplanted by our youngest. She made the Gringotts Lego kit. If you've seen it.
Yeah,
that I had to build out of plexiglass a custom display case for, so that we could display it, so it didn't get knocked over by a cat. So
I love that.
That's fantastic. Well, Rob, can you tell our listeners where they can find you, social medias, where to get your books, and when can we expect the next series to come out?
So if you look up at Left Hand Rob on Threads, on Instagram, I'm mostly active on those two platforms. I used to be on that other short form social media blogging platform, but I am not anymore. My account is still there. There's nothing new being posted there. Threads is a great place to reach me, as you both know. I'm active there. Lefthandrob.net is my infrequently updated blog. If I suddenly see a lot of uptick in people reading it, I might try and post some more stuff there. There is some good background content on Titan Run Trilogy. There's some other essays and things there for you. TitanRunTrilogy.space is the one-stop shop that I'm going to update some more information in the coming days for the books. If you go to Smashwords, you can find Breaking Orbit, the first book in the series, in the trilogy, for free. As soon as I get distribution sorted out through with Smashwords with the wider distribution, I'm going to get Amazon to make Breaking Orbit free there as well. I think I have it at 99 cents right now on Kindle. So you can read it on Kindle as well. Or if you want to, you can order the paperback and hardcover. Those are, of all three, are all on Amazon. The rest of the trilogy, the other two books, are currently on Amazon. Any print format, digital or print that you want, including Kindle Unlimited, coming out late April or early May, will be the first story in the retrograde cycle, which is called A Greater Puzzle. And like I said, I'll give you the tagline, the blurb for that I recently sorted out ahead of time, just to pique everyone's interest. So, Captain Celia Gray used to fix spaceships. Now she commands them. Dispatched to the outer reaches of explored space, all she has is her able crew, her problem-solving skills, and a dose of anxiety. Will that be enough to crack a mystery that could alter the course of humanity? A Greater Puzzle, Retrograde Cycle Part 1, coming out April or May. That's going to be an Amazon exclusive. It'll be Kindle and Kindle Unlimited, ebook only for now, but it'll be there. Folks who are listening, if there's a clamor for wider release, if I get a significant number of Apple iBooks readers or Smashwords readers that say, we really want to read it, but we don't want to go to Amazon, I'm flexible. I want to go where the audience is. Let me know, folks.
Well, I'm excited about that one. That sounds great because I always love the spaceship mechanic characters. Geordi LaForge, Chewbacca, Kaylee from Firefly. These are my favorite characters. Like, you got to have the mechanic, put them in charge, and you got yourself a good story. Now, call to action, though, because sometimes when we hear from authors, it's like, Amazon, I need reviews. The reviews are so big, 5-star reviews, all this kind of stuff. Where, though, is the best place for our listeners, if they're interested, they pick up this book, to give that feedback? Because, we're a nice community and we always like to give back and help out and say thanks.
Those Amazon reviews and ratings, those 4 or 5-star ratings, I think are critical. Yeah. That Amazon ranking is everything to the independent author, such as myself, and getting your title to show up in things is incumbent upon that. Goodreads, which, as we all know, Amazon owns anyway. But Goodreads is another place. And what I like to tell everyone, because so often it's word of mouth that does it. We're all nerds. We all have nerd friends, because we all come together around our common interests. If you like the book, tell your friends, tell 2 friends, make it a pyramid thing. Tell everybody you know. Amazon, Goodreads, tell your friends.
Nerds, send in your deep thoughts, nerd questions, or talk nerdy to me subjects, or other people you'd like us to interview by sliding into our DMs, or send those topics in an email to podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Hey, Rob.
Yeah?
Who are you going to call?
Ghostbusters!
Heck yes, it's time. Let's talk about the Ghostbusters franchise.
As we all know, the Ghostbusters is a Filmation animated series from 1986. It begins with a cold open with our 2 characters, Jake Kong Jr. and Eddie Spencer Jr. They've inherited the Ghostbusters franchise from their fathers, the original Ghostbusters. They've got the gear, they've got the crazy car with like the wings on it. It looks like the Monstermobile, and carrying over from the original Ghostbusters to this new generation of Ghostbusters, these Gen Xers that are trying to figure out how to do the ghostbusting thing, is of course Tracy the Gorilla, who was an original Ghostbuster, but also kind of eeks and ooks their way into the ghostbusting thing from these new Ghostbusters as they go through and they fight ghosts and they travel through time, all to defeat the evil, the main bad guy of the entire series, Prime Evil, who of course is a Ghost Lord.
What are you talking about?
I am talking about the 1986 Filmation animated show, The Ghostbusters. Isn't that
so
what the
now
episode is about?
I know you are pulling my leg because I know the Rob who is in Eternal Search for the Perfect Movie, and you have like two that I know of that are on your list as a perfect movie. One of them is Back to the Future, which also ironically came out in 1984. The other one is Ghostbusters, the movie that came out in 1984 that clearly was the basis to you trying to trick me right now.
Joking, but this is a very interesting thing because this is the Ghostbusters that I saw first. In 1985, I was 6 years old and I did not see the original Ghostbusters. I watched this cartoon.
Funny.
Yes, I watched this cartoon. This cartoon was the Ghostbusters. I had the action figures for this cartoon.
I don't think I've seen a single episode of this cartoon. I knew it existed, but wow.
It's also one of these weird coincidences and ideas of like, how do these two things happen at the same time? Because sometimes we get those movies where it's like Deep Impact and Armageddon both came out the same year and were about asteroids coming to Earth. Like the volcano and Dante's Peak, right? Just two people had, we're going to make a volcano disaster movie this year, and they just work simultaneously. There were 65 episodes of the Ghostbusters animated show that went from 1985 to 1986, because remember, like, they just every week you got a new episode, right?
Yeah.
And it's animated, so they had to have been working on those, a couple years beforehand. So it's like somehow wildly coincidentally, there was a Filmation studio had this idea of like, we'll do Ghostbusters. It's nothing like the Ghostbusters we know, but they're the Ghostbusters, and it's called Ghostbusters, and they wrote this whole show, 65 episodes of it, and it just came out at the same time as this comedy movie.
So it's not attached to this franchise. They don't have
nothing to do with it at all. It's totally different. They don't wear backpacks. They don't shoot laser guns. They don't do any of this. They don't have it's just also called Ghostbusters, and they fight, but it's completely different. Not related at all.
You're on the right track. That's the studio hearing a rumor about something being made, and they also make something similar. Who knows who came up with the idea first? I think of stupid rom-com movie that came out, I don't know, about a decade or more ago. One was called No Strings Attached. One was called Friends with Benefits. One had Ashton Kutcher and one had Justin Timberlake, and it's the same movie.
It's the same movie.
So what you're telling me is there's this alternate existence of another Ghostbusters franchise that's not this Ghostbusters franchise, but came out after the original Ghostbusters movie. Like, this is wild. I had no idea.
It's one of the Filmation movies, or one of the Filmation series made to sell toys. It was like, there was He-Man, there was Thundar the Barbarian, there was Ghostbusters, there was Silverhawks. Like, this studio was just cranking out ideas to sell toys, and Ghostbusters was one of them. And they had a gorilla in a Indiana Jones hat and cargo shorts as part of their team. It's amazing.
Every time you mention the gorilla, I don't think you are a fan of Entourage, but any of our listeners who are a fan of Entourage, I keep thinking about Johnny's Bananas, which if you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. But this is wild. I don't even know what to say. I don't think I've ever seen a single second promotional anything about this, and our ages aren't that far apart, but I do know I went and saw this. I don't remember if it was in the theater, or one thing that we used to do in Santa Barbara growing up is my dad would take our VW van and open up the back at the drive-in. I think it was either a drive-in where it was a double feature. It was like Ghostbusters, and then we'd all fall asleep and my parents would watch the second movie that was more for adults, or we went to theaters. But I even remember having it on VHS. Ghostbusters was a well-played movie in my household growing up, and we're only like a year apart. So
right.
Wow, that's bananas to me, just bonkers. But let's talk about
listeners. When you get a chance, go ahead and do an internet search and be like Ghostbusters Filmation or Filmation Ghostbusters to see the images of this and their car and their gorilla and their thing. Like, it's what a coincidence. But that was my first Ghostbusters.
So then you see the film from 1984. No?
I was not old enough to see this film with its harsh language and its dick jokes. No.
So what in Rob's existence growing up, what was the next thing you saw that was Ghostbusters related?
So in 1986, spawning off of the incredible success of the Ghostbusters movie was the animated series that actually followed, like, had our characters, and that was called the real Ghostbusters cartoon.
Yeah,
And
I
the
do
reason it
remember
was called that is because there was already a Ghostbusters cartoon.
that. So then you saw the cartoon.
So then I saw the real Ghostbusters cartoon, which I absolutely love. This is the one where Egon, for whatever reason, has this weird, like, yellow bouffant hairdo. You've seen the art there. And of course, that was my favorite. Frank Welker did the voice of Egon in that series. And fun fact, Arsenio Hall was the voice of Winston in that series. Yes.
Wow.
Peter Venkman, the Bill Murray character, was Lorenzo Music, which voice nerds know. But do you remember when we were kids how there was like Garfield movies and Garfield cartoons and he had that like very distinct voice? It was the same voice. Peter Venkman in the cartoons is Garfield. And they don't do the voice. He doesn't do the voice any different. Like, it just sounds exactly the same as Garfield. That's the guy's voice. And I loved that show. It was so much better than the Ghostbusters. These are the real Ghostbusters. It says so right in the title. Like, when I was 7 years old, I thought I was going to grow up and become a Ghostbuster. Like, this was a real job that I could get. And I could drive around this big car and we could go shoot lasers at ghosts. This was a total thing. I loved that TV show. I am sure I saw every episode of it. Things I remember from it were, if you remember in the Ghostbusters movies, Egon talks about like, you know, like something spirit guide. And then this, like, he had these books, right? These mysterious books he would refer to. Well, he did the same thing in the real Ghostbusters, even though he had this weird blonde haircut and didn't sound anything, you know, and was voiced by Frank Welker. But one of the books they would always refer to would be the Necronomicon, which was then, of course, my first exposure to H.P. Lovecraft, and I didn't even know it.
You got bamboozled there with H.P. Lovecraft. That cartoon was on for a long time, too. It was on for a long time.
It was on from 86 to 91.
That's a long time for a cartoon in the 90s and 80s.
Yeah, it went all the way through. Like, it started when the first movie came out and went all the way through like another couple years after the second movie came out.
Wow. I know the cartoon existed. This is also one that I've seen clips of, but it wasn't part of my cartoon watching routine in the 80s. I don't know why. I remember liking the movie. Growing up in a very pop culture heavy household. Ghostbusters 1 and 2 were high rotation growing up, but didn't really ever get into the cartoons. So we definitely have different experiences with this.
I'm like 11 years old. I'm seeing commercials on TV. Ghostbusters 2 in theaters. This is going to be a summer blockbuster. Well, you know what else happens in the summer? Rob's birthday. What does Rob want for his birthday? He wants him and all his friends to go see the new Ghostbusters 2 movie. Well, listen, you can't see Ghostbusters 2 unless you've seen Ghostbusters 1. So apparently, I'm now old enough to see Ghostbusters on VHS with all of its dirty language and dick jokes, and I'm all in. I watch it a million zillion times. I'm like, it's weird that this guy's not the same as Egon in the cartoon, but I guess it's all right. And so, yeah, I didn't see Ghostbusters 1 until Ghostbusters 2 came out in order to get it all straight.
Ghostbusters 2 was a pop culture phenomenon. They really hit mainstream media hard. They had Bobby Brown, who was emerging as a solo artist, do the theme song to go along with the success of Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters theme song.
That soundtrack is incredible. I have
the first one,
the Ghostbusters 2 soundtrack.
Oh yes,
on cassette tape.
Yes,
in my Walkman, just going, wearing out.
Yeah, they hit mainstream media hard. That was McDonald's toys, and it makes me think of Spaceballs. The merchandise, just that scene of ridiculousness in that Spaceballs movie is exactly what Ghostbusters 2 was. Like, it's Ghostbusters 2, the shampoo, Ghostbusters 2, the toothpaste, Ghostbusters 2, the Stay Puffed Marshmallow pack, Ghostbusters 2, like, it was like they hit it hard. So no wonder then your movie experience came from how big the second film was. Yeah.
Sort of, yeah. And well, I mean, how big the first one, because it made this animated series, but it all started with these comedians from Saturday Night Live who made this movie, and very much a Dan Aykroyd vehicle. Like, Dan Aykroyd that dude is Ray Stantz. That dude believes in ghosts. That dude invests money in all kinds of like mysticism and things. Like, this was his dream.
In our notes for the episode, you put it's an SNL spinoff, but it's not an SNL movie in traditional forms. It just happens to star all these guys.
It was all these friends, right, from that time period in New York making a movie.
Yeah.
I did like Ghostbusters was not a sketch on
Right.
Saturday
Okay.
Night Live,
Okay.
like say a Ladies Man or I don't know,
Coneheads or Wayne's
Coneheads
World.
is another great
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny, Dan Aykroyd's in Coneheads as well.
Ooh, look at that.
He was like, listen, guys, I got this down. You just get all your friends who you're already hanging out with from Saturday Night Live, and you just make a movie. What should the movie be about? I don't know. That Conehead thing is pretty popular. Let's go.
And then 10, 15 years later, who followed that model?
Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler and
Yep.
Happy Gilmore, right? Yeah.
Him and
It's
all
good
his
stuff.
friends.
All right. So we're at backwards to go forwards. 1984 Ghostbusters is released. It stars a bunch of guys from Saturday Night Live. I think it's housed as a comedy, but ends up being pretty surprising how scary it actually is. It's actually a pretty spooky film.
It's got some spooky moments in it. I remember being like spooked out when I was an 11-year-old kid watching it. I feel like, yeah, it does. I think maybe that's one of the things that's so great about it is it's not pigeonholed either way. It's not that comedy that a lot of other Bill Murray comedies, like remember those guys did Stripes, which would be another example of those guys like doing another comedy movie while they were hanging out. That movie's like pretty good halfway through, and then like it's pretty funny, and then it's like, oh, we should probably have a plot and wrap it up, and then that movie gets like really bad. I think another one of my
Caddyshack is like that. I know Caddyshack is beloved, but
it's like goofs, and then I guess we have to wrap up a story, and it's like, we don't need this anymore. I think a lot of comedies kind of suffer from that, like this genre of comedy. This one doesn't. This one is about the story first. This one is about the Ghostbusters and making this work, and then these actors just doing their thing.
Many people call this a perfect movie, and I think you have even mentioned, like, in your idea of what a perfect movie is, it's got the plot points, it's got character development and arcs, it's got diversity at a time in the 80s where diversity wasn't a thing. It's got really great cast.
Yeah, nobody's phoning it in this cast. Everybody's perfect.
Yeah, and no one's taking it not seriously. It would have been very easy for Rick Moranis or Sigourney Weaver to phone this in and be like, this is kind of a joke of a movie, but it's iconic. Their performances are iconic. The script is just I think you're right. It's the perfect amount of levity and not seriousness and jokes in the middle of a pretty serious ghost haunting. There's danger to be had.
Rick Moranis would be another example of what you're talking about. Like he just goes full on Rick Moranis throughout the whole thing. And you think it's like an over-the-top silly character, but like that character continues. He gets a full arc towards the end and becomes important to the plot. Like it's not normal movies where there would be a bunch of like throwaway stuff in that sense. I love the pacing. I love the way they set up the plot, the way it escalates, the way it comes to a conclusion is hilarious, but also dangerous. Iconic quotable lines for forever. There's a weird scene where Ray has sex with a ghost or something. That's like the only scene where I'm like
assault that it gets
why
cut
is this
out
happening?
Now.
Yeah. And I was like, did he dream it? Is he having a relationship with his ghost? Is there some sort of weird side plot where like he's not trapping ghosts if they give him sexual favors? It's terrible.
I don't remember what, and I'll tell you what, because I think it's cut out of a lot of streaming versions of it now.
Oh, really? It should be. It's the one scene
really
that does not belong in the movie. Otherwise, it's a perfect movie.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say about that scene, but yeah, it's I also think it has a great score. And what I like about the score is that all of these future films that we're going to talk about uses elements of that score. It reminds me of really big franchise movies like Star Wars, like Lord of the Rings, Back to the Future. There's pieces of the score that continue to be used. And then
Superman.
They hit a home run with Ray Parker Jr. and the theme song Ghostbusters, which they also released a music video, which were bigger at the time in the 80s.
Yeah, for sure.
That had pieces of the film. And also, if you remember, it has cameos just from different actors saying, who are you going to call? And it becomes this thing. Yeah.
Anyone who was in New York hanging out doing filming could get into this, could get a cameo on there. You're absolutely right.
It was the era of catchphrases. Wendy's had, where's the beef? Ghostbusters had, who you going to call? And it just became this cultural phenomenon. And then the cartoon came out, which was your introduction.
And then the cartoon came out, which was a fantastic. Highly recommend.
And then we get to Ghostbusters 2, which what I appreciate that they did at the time is they didn't just churn out a sequel because the original was so big. They they did it right. They came up with a good script. They came up with a good sequel plot. And Ghostbusters 2 came out 4 years later in 1989. And again, we mentioned Bobby Brown. This is my biggest memory is that song and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Those are my two biggest memories of Ghostbusters 2. I don't remember anything else about
Well, that's a terrible memory because the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is not
the
in
first
Ghostbusters 2. Yes.
Oh, it's the slime is the second one. Sorry. Yes.
The second one is all about the pink slime, and they make the Statue of Liberty come to life. That's
right.
their big giant that marches through the city, destroying everything. I think Ghostbusters 2 was, I mean, it still brought back like everybody from the original, and it had that same tone. It had that same kind of gritty New York vibe to it the whole time, right? Like, even though they're successful, they're still struggling in New York to make this business a thing and whatever. But it might have been more family oriented, or maybe I was just old enough to see it. I felt like it was a little sillier.
It was definitely sillier. Yes, I think you're right. They found that the original movie was more popular with kids, right? The cartoon came out, kids
and the cartoon was huge, and they were selling action figures and stuff. So I think this one got a little bit sillier. And I think this movie, unlike what we said with the first one, where if it was like where everything was perfectly cast, I think there was a misstep in Ghostbusters 2.
Oh, tell me more.
I think if you go back to Saturday Night Live, Dan Aykroyd and Steve Martin had one of my favorite old sketches from the 70s and 80s, The Wild and Crazy Guys.
Yeah.
In Ghostbusters 2, Peter McNichol, who's like the guy who works at the art museum where Sigourney Weaver works, and he's cleaning up this ancient painting that is like this evil painting where the guy comes alive and like all this stuff. He's doing a Wild and Crazy Guys accent, like whole thing. That should have been Steve Martin. That was where this, if that were Steve Martin, this movie would be at the top of everybody's favorite thing. Which one's better? Ghostbusters 1 or Ghostbusters 2? I don't know. It's so good. Ghostbusters 2 had Steve Martin in it. He's so cool. That would be the thing I would change. I would love to see this movie if Steve Martin had played the Wild and Crazy Guy accent guy.
So that makes me wonder what Steve Martin was doing at the time. Let me look him up real quick.
Oh, yeah. So this movie came out in 89. So we'd want to look at what he was doing in 88, or I guess what movies came out in 89 for him.
Okay. Do you remember the movie Roxanne?
Oh, yeah, that was huge for him.
So that came out in 87. So I wonder if and then The Three Amigos was the year before that. So I wonder if he was waiting for the next big thing. But on his IMDb, there isn't anything of substance. There's nothing between 87 and 91. So I wonder if he was waiting for the next big thing and maybe he passed on Ghostbusters 2.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe he was
interesting
on vacation. Who knows?
But you know what? I never
Or it wasn't a big enough part for him, or it didn't look like a big enough part on paper. Like, well, do I get to be a Ghostbusters? No, you get to be this guy. And he was like, I don't think so.
Right.
I don't know.
And you make a good point. Like, I never connected that dude's accent with the Wild and Crazy Guys, but you're absolutely right. Like, that's the dude.
I
right?
feel like
Without
he's doing that bit, and I'm sure Dan Aykroyd coached him like, no, you do it like this, and like all that stuff. I'm like, just get the real guy.
That's so interesting. Okay, so then Ghostbusters 2 comes out. And
now for most people, that's it. Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2. These are the original casts. This ends my report on Ghostbusters. But we know there's a lot more Ghostbusters.
I mean, it definitely, by the time Ghostbusters 2 comes out, you have success of the cartoon, big success of the first movie. It is officially a franchise at this point where it makes total sense that what's going to happen is maybe more media. There were video games as part of the franchising. And I know there are comic books. I haven't read any comic books. Have you?
So the real Ghostbusters cartoon ended in 91, right? It had run its course, right? It had a billion seasons, and the vibe or the excitement of Ghostbusters 2 after a couple years was gone. So then there was nothing for a while. And then, of course, in 1997, because it was 1997, there had to be a new cartoon called the Extreme Ghostbusters. I'm not sure. It was probably spelled X-Treem Ghostbusters because cartoons are back, baby, and they're more extreme and whatever. This was a disaster. I don't think I even watched an episode. I was a senior in high school. I was not interested in this at all. It's in researching it, it is labeled as a Ghostbusters franchise spinoff filled with diversity and 90s attitude that failed in its first season.
The first and only season. I mean, it
Exactly.
seems like we're past 10 years of the franchise's origins. If you start with the movie, it sounds like they're trying to capture younger
Or
audience
keep it
again with the
alive. Like, hey, we've got
cartoons.
this franchise. We got to do something with it.
I mean, they wouldn't keep the same demographic alive because, like you said, 97, I was in college. You were a senior in high school.
Yeah.
They're trying to capture younger members, right? I think that's what they're trying to do with this cartoon.
Yeah, it's a whole
But
new
it doesn't happen.
Ghostbusters
Yeah.
for a new group of kids who honestly don't care about Ghostbusters.
Nope, they don't. The movie is old to them at this point.
Now, after, 10 years after that, Ghostbusters came back again in a more successful way. IDW Comics bought that licensing and they decided to kind of reinvent Ghostbusters stories. It's got a completely different art style than like the cartoon. This isn't the real Ghostbusters. It's supposed to be more like the movie Ghostbusters, right? It's those guys and they're kind of, it's off model, art against that, but it's everything you love about Ghostbusters in a comic book. It's a nostalgia thing. This was a very popular thing to do in the 2010s, was to like bring back that cool thing you love, but in comic book form, nerds. And it's fine. It was successful. It lasted for 8 years and did very well until everything was flipped on its head in 2016.
So 2016 happens, and now we have 4 comedians, 3 of them from Saturday Night Live, that remake Ghostbusters. This was generally, I think, a box office flop.
Was it? I don't remember. I remember it having buzz.
I think a lot of people went and saw it. I don't think it got a lot of critical acclaim, which I don't think a Ghostbusters movie really ever will, because it's its own franchise. It's like Star Wars. When new Star Wars comes out, there's not a lot of critical acclaim to it. People clamor to it because they love the franchise.
There's a lot. Yeah, I mean, there's more Star Wars fans than there are Ghostbusters fans, but if you're not a Star Wars fan, you don't care.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, until I prepped for this episode, I had not seen this, and that was a misstep. It's surprisingly very good. I
think it's a perfectly good Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah, and I like it as neither of us are big fans of remakes, and this is a remake versus a reboot because it acts as if the original franchise doesn't exist, right?
That's what I don't like about it. Yes.
Oh, I mean, what they were trying to do is restart the franchise from scratch, right? That was the attempt. And actually, even at the end of this film, they hint that there's going to be another movie, and they never make it. And I think they never make it because the Afterlife reboot starts to become a thing.
Disagree.
Okay.
I think that they didn't get their second movie, maybe partially because it wasn't a huge moneymaker. And part of the reason why it wasn't a huge moneymaker, get strapped in, listeners, here we go, is because this movie came out in the year 2016. When Donald Trump was running for president, and there was this whole empowerment of internet trolls, of young men who all of a sudden decided they could just say whatever terrible thing they wanted and post review bombs on things of whatever they wanted and trash on things that were too woke or that had, female stars. I think this movie got absolutely trashed for no reason by a bunch of internet nerds who never even saw the movie. I think that they were outspoken and terrible about, like having woman Ghostbusters. This isn't real Ghostbusters and this can't be anything and blah, 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 blah. And it had all of this stupid hate generated around it because of jerkholes. And I think it kind of became this like toxic thing of like, oh, well, I can't go see and enjoy that movie because, nerd like trolls online are saying that it's bad and things like that. I think that affected it a lot.
That's an interesting point of view, but the one thing that you don't factor in with that point of view is that Hollywood doesn't care. Because it wasn't a box office success in the manner that they want it to be, even if it made money, the way they do their metrics in Hollywood will show that it lost money, because it's really weird. I watched this whole thing about how they do their metrics and success, that even a movie that's in a profitable margin gets based on their total sales for the year. So if it's grouped up in this quarter with a bunch of movies that don't do well, they're going to consider it a flop, even if it made money. I think this movie made money. And yes, there was that toxicity about, all of that existed. But if that quarter, the studio was in profitable margin, they would have just made another one, because all press is free press, even if it's bad.
That's an argument with it about it, right? Well, people are talking about the movie, even if they're talking bad things about the movie. But I feel like there was so much, I don't know, it just got this stank to it because of that.
Hollywood doesn't care.
I think one comes before the other, though.
Making money.
Right, and it probably could have made more money if we weren't in that weird era of trashing on things with women in it.
Studio execs don't care about wokeness. They don't care about the backlash unless it's something that's really fringe. And having all women cast wasn't fringe in 2016. Right? It wasn't that extreme. So if it had been in a profitable quarter for the studio, there would have been another one. And let's also recognize that these 4 women, at the time this movie was coming out, a couple of them were emerging as movie stars. And if we went and looked at their IMDb like we did Steve Martin, I bet you're going to find a Bridesmaids, all the things that Kate McKinnon's been doing. Like there are other movies that they were turning towards. And I think the combination of the two, more than what you're saying about the wokeness, but you're not wrong. It came out at a time where there was a lot of backlash about it being all women instead of the original Ghostbusters. But a studio is not going to care about that. They really aren't. You and I might care about that because it gets really disgusting to read and see those things. This was a perfectly serviceable comedy movie, but I do think that was a misstep as well. If we go back to what we talked about the original Ghostbusters, it was a perfect mix of like scary and funny. This one was all funny and jokes with not as much in the fear factor of the ghosts, which, you know, they came up with their own, which I thought was a misstep too. Instead of Slimer, they had Muncher. And I felt like that was a bad women lesbian joke thrown in there. Like they did too overboard on the jokey joke and not enough on making it an actual Ghostbusters movie.
All right, internet trolls, remember it was Analese that stuck up for you.
No, I don't care about their feelings and thoughts. I guess that's what I mean by that. But I will tell you that also Hollywood does not care. They are a machine. They are a money-making venture. They're going to go with what makes them money, regardless of any backlash that they get.
I thought Chris Hemsworth as the ditzy secretary was probably one of my favorite parts of this movie.
Okay, how about poor Chris Hemsworth, first of all? Because if you watch the credits, he apparently learned a very long and very intricate dance routine that he does on the building with all of the like SWAT guys down below, because it's the whole ending credits is this long dance routine that he learned that was cut from the film. If you have not watched the credits, go watch it. It is a phenomenal dance routine. At one point he spins around but his head stays still. Obviously that's CGI, but poor guy learned this very intricate like Paula Abdul-esque dance routine and it was cut from the film, but he nails it. He nails it as being the pretty boy. It's one of the best roles in the show, in the movie, in my opinion.
I think so. I just, when I think back about that movie, I'm like, man, Chris Hemsworth was so funny in that movie. He just took it on the chin like a champ. I also remembered like Dan Aykroyd was in this movie. Basically playing Dan Aykroyd. He was not Ray Stantz from the Ghostbusters. He was like the dude who owned like the crazy shop full of old books and crystals and mystical things because that's who Dan Aykroyd is. I'm sure there was a bottle of Crystal Skull tequila on the table in the background there, which is great. He should be in it because he's Dan Aykroyd and the Ghostbusters are like, that's his baby. But man, it really hammered home in the movie. Like watching it was like, oh, this is definitely not like, he's not Ray. So this isn't Ghostbusters.
And this is actually,
it was a weird thing.
I appreciated that because he's not the only one that made a cameo. Like 4 of the original actors are in this making cameos. And it made it very clear to me that this was not a reboot. This was a restart.
Like
and they were trying to restart the franchise, which they hint with Leslie Jones's character in the bonus scene at the end of the credits. She picks up the phone and she's like typing something in or she's listening to something and she turns around and she goes, "Who is Zool?" And then it cuts out. They were planning on restarting this franchise. So it made sense to have a nod to those original actors in other roles, just kind of being there saying like, hey, you remember this guy? You remember this guy? Right. Because I don't think at the time there was a plan for a reboot.
No.
Right. We'll get to the reboots next. So like those cameos made sense. They didn't bother me as much as they did you.
Yeah, they did me because I was like, wait, am I supposed to? Is it trying to? Wait, no, is it?
It's just nods and Easter eggs, right? Like there's a lot of films that got remade or retelling that have those Easter eggs.
I think as you're saying that, I think I'm too big of a Ghostbusters fan to have appreciated those nods and Easter eggs. The person younger than me that's like, Ghostbusters, those were old movies, right? I'll watch this one. Probably like, oh, I think that was a guy from the original one. Aren't I clever for figuring that out? Where I'm like, listen, there's a very organized canon universe about the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I would take it. If I had watched it in 2016, I probably would have been more like, oh, hey, how cool they had these other actors in it as a nod to the original, but this is a completely new movie. I think of like one thing I didn't like is when Steven Spielberg's West Side Story came out, right? They have Rita Moreno back in West Side Story. In the original in the 60s, she plays Anita and wins Oscar for her portrayal of Anita. When they remake West Side Story, they replace the male shopkeeper Doc with Rita Moreno
To get her in there.
to get her in there. Now, to me, that's not a positive use, although she was brilliant and really should have won an Oscar for that role, the way they rewrote it. It was beautiful. It was beautiful storytelling, but to me, that's more of a stretch to put Rita Moreno back into that film and change a character for it. I don't know. There's good and bad to all of that, positive and negative to all of that. But if I'd watched it at a time, I would have been like, oh, look at these cute little nods to the original. But now we have a new set of Ghostbusters to retell this story in a new way for a new audience.
I think maybe the other thing was I was watching it, I was like, oh, like these dudes are still here. They're perfectly serviceable to be in a movie. But what this movie is telling me is you're never going to get these guys back as Ghostbusters again, is I think the feeling I was getting.
At the time, that would make sense. Yeah. Right. I'm obviously watching it from different eyes because I didn't watch it until 2025. So I watched it 9 years later.
So this did reinvigorate, the fan base, because we're talking about Ghostbusters again. And one of the things that happened was IDW Publishing, who still had the licensing for their comic books, decided to just go ham. And they produced two series that probably went 6 to 12 issues, crossover issues. There was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meets the Ghostbusters.
Oh my God.
Because IDW also owned the TMNT franchise, which was hugely successful. Like those comics, that run of TMNT from IDW is incredible. That's the game. That's the comic line that inspired that game. You know, that game that I kickstarted that I have.
Yeah.
The miniature games and stuff. That's all from this IDW, not the Ghostbusters one, but the IDW comics. Like it's that. Kevin Eastman was involved in it. It's really, really good. Art's great. But anyway, they're like, well, we've got this thing that's really successful, and we've got Ghostbusters still. Let's wad them up and mash them together. IDW also at that time had gotten the Transformers license, and they're like, two great tastes to go great together, baby. Ghostbusters and the Transformers. I have not read this series, but looking at covers, there's covers with those giant robots flying through the skies with like Ghostbusters sitting on their shoulders, shooting lasers. Like, let's go.
It's the rule of the 30s as well, right? The 80s were fully 30 years away in the 2010s. And so now let's bring back all this nostalgia and get the dollars from those 30 and 40 something Gen Xers who they're like, Rob's going to walk into the comic book store. He's going to see this cover of Optimus Prime and Dan Aykroyd on it, and he's going to get it. But that does lead us into the 2020s. And with the 2020s, everybody's favorite actor, Paul Rudd, stars in a 2021 reboot. And this is maybe we're mixing up our words, but it's not a retelling. It's not a remake of the same franchise. Now Rob gets his wish in continuing the story from 1984, and Ghostbusters Afterlife brings the Ghostbusters back.
It's a good movie. I liked it a lot. It's very similar to Star Wars Force Awakens. Like, they're basically the same movie. If we were going to do a, hey, I've seen this before episode, we could do this movie and Star Wars The Force Awakens, because it is a continuation. It takes that story and those characters that you loved, and it starts introducing the next generation to continue that story. But also, they're just retelling the same story again, with a kind of a facelift and a modern sheen on it or whatever. They got me. It's a good formula. I like it.
Well, it does a good job of, I mean, it's the same threat. It is Zool. It is the same threat from 1984 with the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper. But they made it so that threat had been continuously trying to reemerge. And one of the original Ghostbusters, and this is spoilers, by the way.
Of course.
Just no spoilers. You start to learn that Egon had isolated himself from his family and his friends to stop Zool from, and in 30 years, 40 years he spends stopping Zool. And then is discovered by his grandchildren as they inherit his house, and
because he has passed away.
He's passed away.
In franchise, Egon has passed away, and his
Right.
family's like finding this old house. And of course, in real life, Harold Ramis had passed away,
Right.
and so it was like, whoa, how are they going to do this Ghostbuster movie without Harold Ramis? And
Yes.
so there was a lot of that going on as well.
Yes, I will say this movie is really great. I'm a Paul Rudd fan. I've loved him. Paul Rudd is a man crush for me. I've loved him since I saw him in Romeo and Juliet in the 90s.
The Leonardo DiCaprio one?
Huh. He plays the prince who is to marry Juliet. And I just thought he was the cutest thing ever. And I've loved him ever since. So
what's perfect about it is like they could have put him in the Peter Venkman role. Like they could have made him the leader Ghostbuster, right? Because he's super funny. He's super popular. He's a Time Magazine sexiest man alive, whatever. But instead, perfectly, they gave him the Rick Moranis character.
Yes, and he nails it. It's the perfect balance of things that Gen Xers loved about Ghostbusters and new stuff for Gen Zers and millennials to hook on more to this franchise. It's a perfect balance. They did a really good job doing that, because it could have been so bad that those of us who grew up with Ghostbusters and were kids in the 80s and born in the 70s could have been like, this sucks, this is stupid. And it could have been not enough to attach on to the Gen Z and make them want to see more. It was the perfect balance. It is the perfect balance of those two things.
It's fantastic. I think, like if I think about it, I'm like, no, there's 3 Ghostbusters movies now, right? Like I was talking beforehand, like in the 80s, it was Ghostbusters 2. And for most people, that's it. I would say this is basically Ghostbusters 3 for me. And I think it's great. I mentioned in the car episode that we did however many months ago that the Ghostbusters car, I didn't think it would be on my list, but dang, when they like pull the big dusty cover off the car and they start it up and that V8 engine's like, and then you hear the like cheesy siren from like the old school ambulance. I'm like, this is incredible. This is the Ghostbusters, baby.
Yeah, they do a great job unveiling all of those things. Again, it's a balance, because we get surprised by it with nostalgia and the new kids get surprised by it. Like, what is this thing? Oh, that car is really cool. And they even make a joke about it. Oh, maybe it's in the 2016 movie. They make a joke about it being inhuman siren, unlike anything that should be played for human ears or something like that. I think it's a 2016 movie. They make a joke about the siren. And now the film part of this franchise continues with Frozen Empire. And there's another movie, a sequel to Frozen Empire in the books for like 2026, I think. So they did their jobs. They wrote a good film. And now the franchise is continuing in terms of the films.
So we didn't spoiler the Ghostbusters Afterlife. But of course, this is a world with ghosts. So at the end, the ghost of Harold Ramis shows up.
Oh, of course.
What did you think of that? Were you surprised by it? Had you been spoilered on it? Because when I saw it in theaters, like, I didn't know that was going to happen. I'm like, oh my God, of course there's going to be that. But also I'm like, they're trying to make me cry here. I'm not going to cry a movie. I'm not going to cry at your movie.
I would say what surprised me, I think the term or the trope that you've used is Mary Sue.
Oh, okay.
It came off very Mary Sue to me that the 3 of them showed up. I thought Dan Aykroyd was going to show up and save the day. It was a surprise to see Bill Murray and
Ernie Hudson.
Thank you. To see them show up and in their Ghostbusters uniforms. And then from that point, the ghost of Egon had to appear and help out his granddaughter and all that good stuff. But it felt a little, that was the most contrived part of the plot.
Yeah, I thought so too.
That was for us more than it was for the Gen Zers, for the kids watching the show.
Sure. Or it was even for them, but it was like, now you have to sit and eat your vegetables while these old men who can barely walk say lines and shoot imaginary lasers.
Or at least, for the kid who's like a teenager, maybe not a kid, but maybe the 13, 14-year-old going, hey, Ma, I want to watch the original now. Can I see these guys? And they'll have to
when I say kid, I mean 25 years old and younger.
Okay, that's also true. Yeah. Anyone half our age or younger. You youngins. That's the one part. Again, it felt a little Mary Sue to me. But also my little, how old was I in 1984?
Ghostbusters heart was definitely
I was
singing.
like, oh, look, it's the guys. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I really I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much. I even enjoyed the kid characters. I'm finding that
Oh,
as
yeah.
I'm getting older, it's a lot harder to watch shows with kid characters going like, oh God, this kid's annoying. But they were actually really good and really realistic kid characters. Really
I think they
on
were
par.
smart about that too, because there's
Yes.
not like the kids don't have to do the heavy lifting in a lot of scenes. Paul Rudd does a lot of the heavy lifting in those
Correct.
kid scenes.
Correct. So all they have to do, like, I love that the granddaughter is androgynous and really fits the mold of what an 11 or 12-year-old would be right now. I love that the friend she makes is a kid who carries around podcast equipment and calls himself Podcast.
Right.
I love the nod at the end of it with Dan Aykroyd's character being like, "That's you." Like just makes a joke that he listens to his ghost podcast, and the kid from Stranger Things that plays Finn, he does a good job being a teenager, being like a 15, 16-year-old. It's all really, really well done. And Frozen Empire is good. I will go and watch the next
ones. Yeah,
sequel.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that jump started the other things on the quote unquote in canon timeline as well. Of course, there was a video game. The next year, a video game comes out and it is supposedly like an in canon thing. Dan Aykroyd was involved. Ernie Hudson and Dan Aykroyd did voices on it and whatever. I don't really know anything about this video game, but I do remember like listening to an interview with Ernie Hudson talking about, oh yeah, this is the next thing, Ghostbusters, and it tells a real story, and if you love Ghostbusters, you should get this video game because it's going to answer a question of the blah blah blah. I'm like, whatever, bro, I don't really play video games, but good for you. But in the most creative way, and the thing that I love the most, and why we decided to talk about comics and cartoons in the first place was because now in the IDW comic book line, they have created Ghostbusters crossing over.
Okay.
And this is the Ghostbusters multiverse.
Oh,
all your
snap.
Ghostbusters are true and correct. The movie Ghostbusters are for reals. The real Ghostbusters from the cartoons, those are the same guys, but from an alternate universe. The lady Ghostbusters, they're also Ghostbusters, but from an alternate universe. The extreme Ghostbusters from 1997 are also in this book. When they have the big crossover multiverse, goes into one kind of thing, a la Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon and whatever, now they are all real and they can all interact with each other in the pages of these comics. They get great art and stuff, and they'll be on the same page with their different art styles. So like the regular IDW comic guys are drawn like they regularly were, but when they go into the real Ghostbusters universe, like they're drawn all 80s cartoony kind of bubbly, and they're all and it's all there, and the ladies are there, and the extreme guys are there. Like it's all comes together in this gigantic overarching story thing. And so there is a Ghostbusters multiverse.
And is that a singular like a one-shot comic, or is it a series?
I think it was a mini-series, so it's probably a couple volumes, right, over a year. Yeah.
I might have to go hoopla that and read it.
I'm gonna read it. Yeah, it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? It's like, how fun.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I ain't afraid of no ghost.
Oh, heck no. Bustin makes
looking
me feel
forward
good.
to the sequel to Frozen Empire. Now I'm looking forward to go reading this multiverse comic.
I think that's the next step for me too. I just go on Hoopla and get this comic, because why not? I mean, people buy this comic. It's been going for almost 20 years now, this IDW license. So I think they're just in their next step. And I think it's super fun to like take all of that stuff and just mash it up together and have some fun.
And that's Ghostbusters.
Woo!
We'd like to welcome back Robert C. Murray. And Rob, we'd like to ask you, what's the nerdiest thing you did this week?
Tell you, I tend to do 3 nerdy things before breakfast just about every day, but
yeah, same. Yeah.
Love it.
Probably for this past week, my wife and I do every year what we call ringing in the new year. And that's watching the extended edition Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yes.
We We typically get through Fellowship and Two Towers, and then it's midnight, and then we watch Return of the King on New Year's Day.
Perfect.
Best friend Rob, I think you do that every year too, right?
That's usually, yeah, that's the winter break tradition is, finally once everything kind of calms down from the holiday shopping and then this and that, and it's like, oh, cool. I don't have to go to work this week. I'm going to sit in the nerd room and like paint minis and write stuff. And there's a TV in here and that's what's on it for however many days it takes going through there. Oh, did you see the new movie?
The new animated?
The animated, what is it? Rohirrim?
Oh yeah, I've seen that it's out there. I haven't watched it yet.
My son went without me, of course. He went with his friends and ditched me. He said, you can wait till it's on streaming. So I guess that's what I'll do.
Rarely do we go into a theater these days. We watch most of our stuff on streaming. So so we'll probably check it out. I'll at least check it out. Always want more Lord of the Rings content.
Right, should be good.
Okay, Rob, what's the nerdiest thing you did this week?
Oh, the nerdiest thing I did this week was super fun because back in Christmas, I got a new game. It's a simple one. It wasn't a giant box of anything. This game is one book. It's a rules book, basically, for a miniature agnostics tabletop game.
Okay.
It's called Deth Wizards, and Deth is spelled D-E-T-H because Deth is the name of the town.
That font looks like Seth Wizards.
Or it could be Seth Wizards. It's Seth's
Death Wizards.
Wizards.
Okay.
It's a magic
gotcha.
shop downtown, and you can go there and buy your little ring game. No, Deth Wizards is cool because there's like 4 or 6 different factions you can design or whatever, and you play the necromancer. You play the evil wizard with your horde of either skeletons or the faction with ghosts or the faction with zombies or the faction like whatever. You can go collect whatever miniatures you want or use a bunch of the miniatures you already have, which is what I love about it, right? Because I'm like, oh, I got ghosts, oh, I got skeletons, oh, I got zombies, oh, I got ghouls. Guess what? I'm ready to play. Like, let's set up the board. Let's go. I did get some, because I wanted everything that's new, you got to have fun. I did get some minis specifically to be my cool necromancers or whatever, and I've been modeling them, putting bases on them and stuff, so I'll be getting ready to paint them. But of course, there's, your army sheets and stuff, and so I've been logging in and writing all my stuff about this and that and getting my armies together so I can play Deth Wizards. And another thing that's cool about this game is there's 2 versions of it you can play. You can play just like battle, right? Me versus you bring your ghost army and I'll bring my skeleton army and we'll collide. So I'm going to have 3 armies ready to go. So when I teach the game, we can just do it that way. The other way that you play in like the solo section of it is you fight the good guys, townspeople. So you roll up like a random army of like a paladin and a knight and villagers or whatever, and they're coming to attack your wizard's tower or your graveyard or whatever, and you're defending your turf against like the AI good guys that come in, which I think is also very different and fun.
That sounds like my kind of game. Like, look at you getting more into the horror genre. I'm loving it right now.
Oh, wait till our next episode.
Ooh.
But yes, I plan to have a couple armies of this so that when we get together, we can I can teach it and we'll be able to play it. I'm super excited because it's going to be a low effort, like very quick. Oh my gosh, I have everything I need to play like within weeks.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
What's the newest thing you did this week, Analese?
This is a few weeks old, but I'm going to mention it now. I guested on a podcast that was really cool. And I had never heard of it before, but the short version it's called You Had to Be There. It's only about a year old. It's maybe 17 or 18 episodes. And the host, her name's Julia. She gets an assignment from her boss. And he gives her 48 hours to find someone who was there at iconic moments in sports and pop culture history. So in one, it's really cool. I've listened to a couple. One of them was the Women's World Cup from like 96. You remember where the one U.S. female soccer player like tore off her shirt and was running around in sports bar. It was an iconic moment, right? She found someone who was there. And so that's the whole thing. She got an assignment to find someone who was there at the now iconic recording of Fleetwood Mac's The Dance, which and listeners may not, that was my freshman year at USC, and I was lucky enough to be chosen to record with Fleetwood Mac. And really funny story, the host Julia found past guests and my college roommate Stacy, because Stacy has it on her IMDb. So Julia gets a hold of Stacy, and Stacy's like, hey, I can tell you some stories, but who really knew about it was my roommate Analese, and you should call her and talk to her. So Stacy hooked it up, and I guessed it on this episode about about Fleetwood Mac's The Dance. So listeners, you want to hear about that story? Really great episode. She did a really good job piecing it together, myself and Stacy, and she also talked to the set designer of the set for that show. It's a really cool episode. I had a lot of fun doing it, but that was the nerdiest thing I did.
That's really cool. That's a cool idea because you get a small story. Like, it's not the story of the celebrities and the whatever. It's a story of what it was to be a fan or what it was to be kind of tangentially involved and, you know, how cool it was to be there. I love that.
Yeah, it was great. And different episodes do different things. It just depends on who she can get a hold of within 48 hours an interview. So it's a really neat idea. Check out that podcast. You had to be there. And definitely the episode that came out late December, which was about Fleetwood Mac's The Dance, which I got to guest on. That was fun.
Excellent.
Finally fun to be on someone else's podcast and not have to edit it all.
It's like when you get to play Dungeons and Dragons instead of DMing Dungeons and Dragons. It's like, it was such a joy to be here. I want to go live my life and not think about this anymore.
I feel hints dropping in that mess, but we'll talk about that later. On our upcoming episode of the Nerd Best Friends podcast, we're diving into the graphic novel Hellboy, the Crooked Man. Join us as we explore the eerie Appalachian folklore, Mike Mignola's atmospheric art, and why this story is the perfect setup for the big screen. Reminder on our call to action, hit that subscribe or follow button on your device and spread the word with those sweet 5-star ratings. Connect with us on social media at Nerd Best Friends or send us an email at podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Let's grow our nerd family and keep the geeky fun going strong. Author Rob, guest Rob, thank you for being on the show today. It was so fun to hear about your series, and I'm looking forward to finishing the first book and seeing what happens. I'm rooting for that. Amazon series, movies, whatever, and we'll definitely build the Lego set somewhere down that line.
Yeah, it was great to be here. Thanks, Rob, also.
I had an absolute thrill meeting you, Rob. Thank you.
Yeah, man. This conversation could go on for hours, I have no doubt.
Oh, definitely. I mean, let's nerd out together again at some point as the series progresses.
Heck yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah,
Thanks,
for
guys.
sure. We'll be here for you. All right. Awesome
Great
job,
episode, Rob.
Analese.
Yeah, this was fun.
Thanks, everybody.
Who are you going to call? Oh, we blew it.